Hello folks, and welcome to another exciting night of XPlane12. I decided to take a little time to compare the accuracy of GPS RNAV versus ILS in XPlane12. In this demonstration, it's going to be pretty much a calm night, near zero surface winds on the ground. I'm going to do it in the Beach King Air by Laminar. First, I'll shoot approach into runway 27, and I'm going to go down to LPV minimum, which I expect to be a little bit high because of this little note up here. VGIS and RNAV glide path not coincident with VGIS angle 2.96 threshold. Okay, so what that tells me, this is a 3-degree glide path angle. I'm probably going to just take a safe bet. I'm going to come down, get just below that, and probably wind up being just a little bit high. Now, as for accuracy, well, real world, we could say that LPV, which has to be a WASP approach, wide area augmentation system, which relies on ground-based towers and satellites to make that approach more finite vertically and horizontally. And that's why the decision altitude is lower on LPV. Anytime you see LP or V, you know it's going to have a WASP. If WASP were to fail or wasn't available, if you have vertical guidance, an autopilot, a system in your aircraft that has vertical guidance like an ILS, you have lateral nav and vertical nav, slightly higher minimum. And if you don't, if you just have localizer only and no vertical guidance, it's LNAV, just like a localizer approach, dive and drive. Anyway, I'm going to do this with vertical guidance and see how low I can get and how accurate it is. Never mind the landing. We'll talk about that later. It was a little long on that one, but I haven't got much time in the Beach King. So there's that. Now the ILS, runway 27. Let me find it. Or runway 9. Come in the other direction. We'll start out here at Broad. Its decision altitude is 276. Oh, let me go back to this. Some people ask the question, one says MDA, one says DADA. Well, that's decision altitude, minimum descent altitude. And the reason for that is if you have vertical guidance, you're allowed to go below the MDA depending on your accuracy of your system, which is LNAV, VNAV, which is not quite as accurate as LPV. You can get down a little bit lower, but you can't just level off and fly straight ahead because below this line here, this is like a triangle. Just kind of draw a triangle or like a upside down, something like this here. You can't go below it. All right. You can dive down to it, but you can't go under it. Well, that doesn't matter where you are along this point here from point V. You still have to immediately stop descent and climb out, and never go below that. So round off to 600. This one I round off to maybe 500 feet. So that's what that means. Decision altitude, minimum descent altitude. So MDA means you can stop your descent at that or better and fly straight ahead to a certain point. This is just an immediate abort. Now this point depends on the accuracy of your glide slope. And when you hit the magic number, you can go no further, no lower, and you can't fly horizontally below the MDA. You have to go back up. Same thing over here, up. So I just want to clarify that. Now the way I'm going to approach this, I'm going to be coming in from the east, probably at a slight angle, and hit this at 2,000 feet, get fully configured, and shoot the approach, I think at about 110 knots. I was a little fast on that. I'll let the speed get away from me, but you know, it was a night landing, and I got a little bit frustrated, but it wasn't too bad landing. It was just long, but it's a long runway, thank God. Anyway, we'll look at that first, and then what we'll do is we'll look at runway 09 ILS, and I was very impressed with it because I rode it all the way down below the minimum and got down to about 60 feet before I canceled the autopilot. Okay, so there's that. So let's look at the accuracy issue here. All right. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, if you look at GPS only, the RNP required uh, navigational performance. On an approach, you need 4 or more satellites to make a GPS approach. It's GPS only, not a WAS. 9.5 feet horizontal, 14 feet vertical. That's not too bad. If you have LPV capability and a WAS receiver and a WAS navigation system, that accuracy is 0.1 nautical mile on approach. The horizontal variation is 2.5 feet and 4 feet vertical. So you can see it's pretty tight. Now, if you were to compare it to an ILS, if you look at an ILS on the HSI, if you have full needle deflection from one side to the other, that's supposed to be around 760 feet full deflection, CDI, or 380 feet from left to right. On the LP, you got a 600-foot full deflection from left to right, which means about 300 feet from one side to the other. So it's 80 feet more accurate, maybe 25%. Vertically, it's probably about the same, maybe better. People also ask, well, why isn't LPV considered a precision approach? And that goes back to that old rule that's still around called the alternate rule minimum. So you cannot consider it a precision approach if 1 hour before, 1 hour after this airport, which we're going to be flying to, has a ceiling to be forecast to be 2,000 feet or lower, or a visibility less 3 miles or less. In which case, you got to pick an alternate. What you do anyway, whether it's whether it's bad or not, there's always going to be an alternate. So there's that. But if the weather conditions are predicted to be at those levels, you can't consider it a precision approach. I want to emphasize that. Even though it is and it isn't. So then it says the alternate that you do pick, if it has an ILS or a PAR, forget GPS, whether it does or not, then that ceiling can be as low as 600 feet or higher, and the visibility can be down to 2 miles. Now, if the alternate has GPS only and no ILS or PAR, then the ceiling goes up to 800 feet, but the visibility is the same, 2 miles. So that's the old alternate rule. And sometimes they list it up here. You used to see it, and well, this is a Jepson, so I'm not familiar with that. It would be marked as, let me go to the other one. It'd be like a W for daily WAS outages, a T for our TWRP, and then there would be a it darkened like a reverse A, and it would be authorization or alternate minimum. That'd be symbolizing alternate. I don't see that anymore on these charts. So maybe that rule doesn't apply anymore, but just to be safe in real world, it is not considered a precision approach, even though wink, wink, it is a precision approach. It's exactly like an ILS. Let me give you an example. On your autopilot, when you set approach mode, not vertical nav, we don't even talk about that. GA only. Now we can do that with commercial jets, but that's another game. Maybe I'll do that in the MD-80 and show you how that works. What you do when you select approach mode, you're going to get a vertical guidance on your HSI and on your ADI, and you're going to get your center line. And when you go down the autopilot, you set approach, and it's going to see GL or something like that, whatever. I'll show you when we do this. You fly straight and level. You don't have to dive and drive, because this glide slope always is above. In this case, it's going to be the initial approach fix, not the intermediate fix. You fly straight into it. It will capture it, and it'll fly exactly like an ILS. Exactly. Which means even if you pre-select the lower altitude for it to stop and select it, it ain't going to do it. It's going to fly like it's on an ILS. It's going to fly right through it. So you do have to be prepared to stop your descent. If you should get 100 above, all right? As you approach it, that's when you want to begin it. So there's that. So regardless whether it's LPV or LNAV VNAV, it will not stop. You might as well just leave 2,000 feet in the altitude window, and once you do the go around, then pre-select it as you climb out, and it'll capture that, because you won't be in approach mode anymore. Just like an ILS. I want to emphasize that. Just like an ILS. Now, if you are doing like a dive and drive kind of deal, all right, and you're using vertical speed, then you can set your LNAV minimum to 620 because you don't have vertical guidance. But you can still be on GPS navigation, flying laterally, and you control your descent. Sometimes you can do it with indicated airspeed. That's the way I like to do it. Get to my, approach speed and do the power deal. Decrease power, increase descent, and increase power, and stop. I think I did that in the last flight I did going to Jacksonville. But the thing about that is you get down drafts, up drafts, so you can't. It's not really precise. You just want to get down maybe somewhere in this area here prior to the other 2 points and be in level flight. And the way you level off, you just add power. But if you set that altitude, it'll stop descent. That's the only time you can do that. If you use an indicated airspeed descent mode or vertical speed, not approach mode. So if you're in X plane and you wonder why it just keeps on flying, now you know. All right. Another little question comes up here is this little racetrack. This is a procedure turn, or i.e. holding pattern. And if you notice, it says IF and IAF. This is an initial approach fix if you fly directly to it. It's an intermediate fix if you fly one of these other points here and fly into it. If you don't hear clear the approach, then you're going to have to do a procedure turn no matter what angle you're coming from, even if you're coming from this direction. It does say no PT required, but if it's controller tower and the tower's open and you don't get a clearance clear to approach, then you have to enter holding. In this case, if I were coming from this direction here, I'd fly out like this, turn around, come back in. And if I still don't get clearance, I got to stay in holding. Coming this way, I'd go out like this, come back around like that. This way, go this way, come in like that. This way would really suck if I had to do it like this here. And well, it depends on the angles. If it was about this angle, I think it's like 70 degrees, I can come out like this, be a direct entry. But if it's too steep, then I'd have to come out like this here, come in this way. But that's holding patterns. That's something I don't want to talk about right now. All right, so did I miss anything? All right, accuracy. Also, GPS is more accurate than VOR navigation. If you get on an airway, let's say you're flying from St. Pete up Vector 35 to Tallahassee, and you're using VOR, but you have GPS. So you plot, let's say, PIE, and maybe you pick a couple of waypoints, ended, Layson, put this one in there, and then CTY. All right, let's say we're just going to go that far, Vector 35. If you use GPS when you get on that line, you'll find your left to right accuracy is far more accurate. I think it's 4 times more accurate. I believe in VOR, it's up to 8 either way full deflection. And I think on GPS, it is 3 or 4 miles, or 4 miles each way, or 2.5. I know that WASP navigation is something like a half mile to a mile. I had that written down somewhere here. When you are, they had the figures here in front of me somewhere. Well, we know it's 0.1 RNP for WASP and GPS. Now, WASP relies on ground towers communicating with satellites and then relaying information to another point east or west, in the east coast or west coast, and back up to the satellite and then back down to the airplane. The aircraft never communicates with those towers, and those towers are precisely located. And the WASP system is pretty much a U.S. lower 48. I don't know if they have it in Hawaii and Alaska or not, or Canada, but I know the lower 48 has WASP. Big, tall towers. And if WASP goes out for any reason, then you just revert to GPS, LNAV, VNAV, or LNAV. What else is there? Alternate, let's see. They used to call that a Wayne test. Oh, alternate rule, and I already went over that. So the real question is, X-Plane 12, RNP, GPS, how accurate is it? Well, I don't know. We're about to find out. I think it's pretty accurate. So let's take a look at this approach, and you be the judge. We'll do 2. 1, 2, let's see, where am I going first? 2.7, and then we'll compare that to the ILS and see what we see. Okay, we're coming in at about a 10, 15 degree angle. descending slowly to 2,000 feet at about 140 knots. Let's go ahead and arm the approach. GS arm. LPV. And we're going to fly right into the glide slope. You execute it the same way you would an ILS. Lights on. Okay, approach flaps only. Vertical guidance. Horizontal guidance. Vertical guidance. All configured to land. Don't got to think about anything but the approach. I'm not going to use full flaps. No wind on the surface. Bit of a crosswind up here. .105 ground speed, about 115 knots indicated. Just above 110. Okay, here it comes. On glide slope. Final check, 3 green, flap set, lights on, seatbelts fastened. There goes our crosswind. There goes our headwind. Normally it's 100 at full flaps, but I like to come in at about 110, 105. Right on the blue line. All right, we're going to take this down as far as we can go. I expect to be just a little bit high once I cross the LPV minimum. We'll round it off to 440. Well, we got white, white, red, red on the Pappy. Decision is decision altitude, not radar. 400, and bingo, there's the minimum. 300. A little bit hot, a little bit high. Oh, come on. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. Well, that was a rather long landing. I don't have much time in this airplane, and I can't see a thing. Okay, now what I'm going to do, since it's a calm night, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to come in the other direction on the ILS and see how good that one does. Okay, next up, ILS runway 09. Okay, now for the ILS. All right, all lit up. glide slope. Turn it final. Approach flaps, gear down, 3 green, lights on. Fly right into the glide slope. There we go. Round that off to 280. There goes the crosswind. Now let's see, this one won't come out high. This should be right on white, white, red, red when I hit minimum. I guess 100 knots at flaps landing or approach only. I was coming a little faster than I thought. We'll see how 100 does. I don't like using full flaps in this thing. It's too much. Alright, still looks good. White, white, red, red. Double white, double red. And just like the LPV, it's right down the middle. glide path. Pretty good. Almost a Cat 2. Wow. I can't see anything again. Landing in the blind. Oh, there it is. Alright, I'll have to concede. The ILS was really good. Dead balls. The landings weren't, but the approach was really spot on. Wow. Leave the landings on, I can't see a thing. Well, I'm impressed. X-Plane did a pretty good job as far as navigational accuracy goes using GPS or ILS, at least in this particular case. If they had better lighting, supposed to have runway lead-in lights, I didn't see any. And a center line that's illuminated, that would help a lot. You can almost do a Cat 2 in this place. I'd also like to add that I'm pretty impressed with this Laminar Beach King Air. I haven't had a chance to fly. I just started flying it about a day ago. I'm pretty impressed with it. It reminds me of the Coronado Beach 19 back in X-Plane 10 and 11. As a matter of fact, it almost looks like an exact copy of Coronado. Only one complaint. Let me stop here for a second. I would have preferred they had the option to have this type of an HSI. Attitude indicator just as well. Everything else left the same. So instead of having a dial down here or on my Bravo, I'd have two knobs down here. This is more modern. It would be cool if they'd added an option. You had either this kind of a setup or this one. This comes with map and everything, so you got all kinds of different variations down here. I guess if you had a Sperry with a vertical guidance capability, that would be pretty cool. Maybe put it up here, right here in the middle. Or the GTX 600, I think there's a new one out for Beach King. Instead of having to keep looking down here, or at least have a pop-up for it. That would be nice. Other than that, I really like flying it. It's a pretty cool plane. Not as fast as the MU, but it's it'll get you around. So as you can see in X-Plane 12, the accuracy of GPS and radio navigation, ILS, is pretty darn accurate and reliable. Very dark here. That's that, folks. Okay, just a quick review. As you can see, the VGSI and RNAV glide path not coincident with 2.96. That would explain why I expected to come out just a little high when I got below LPV minimum. Going back to runway 9, there were no notations as such. And there were, in fact, lead-in lights. I noticed them at the last minute right here because I was sitting a little bit too low in the seat. It was really accurate. I mean, incredibly accurate. It's not a Cat 2. It's not even a Cat 1. But as far as X-Plane is concerned and the performance of the navigational system in the Beach King, it was right, almost right down to near Autoland perfection. So there's that. I'm impressed. GPS, ILS, X-Plane 12, spot on. See you on the next one. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.